a boy found an abandoned wolf pup and made an unusual decision to raise it as if it were a dog. But living together brought surprises no one could have imagined. In the heart of Oregon State, in a small town surrounded by vast coniferous forests and misty mountains, lived Ethan, an 8-year-old boy, with his parents in a modest house on the outskirts of town. Ethan was curious and possessed a natural connection with animals. He spent his days exploring the backyard, observing birds and small mammals that ventured there. The forest seemed like a magical world to him, full of mysteries he yearned to unravel. One day, during a visit to the local conservation center, his life changed forever. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Let us know which city you're watching us from. Stay tuned. At the center, Ethan encountered Skylar, a wolf pup rejected by its mother and separated from its pack. The small wolf was visibly dejected, with a melancholic look that touched the boy's heart. When he learned that Skylar might not survive without special care, Ethan begged his mother to take him home. After lengthy discussions and assurances from the caretakers that the wolf was healthy, she relented. Thus, Skylar became part of the family, but the adaptation was far from easy. In the first days, Skylar was skittish, avoiding any human contact and hiding in dark corners of the house. Ethan, however, was determined. With patience and persistence, he spent hours sitting near the pup, leaving food within reach and speaking calmly. Gradually, the wolf began to relax, accepting Ethan's presence. Within weeks, the bond between them strengthened, and Skylar started showing signs of trust and affection. Skylar's presence in the house soon caught the community's attention. Some neighbors were fascinated by the idea of a wolf living as part of a family, while others were openly skeptical, claiming it was dangerous and irresponsible. The tension increased when a chicken disappeared from a nearby property, and Skylar was wrongfully accused. Ethan, believing in his companion's innocence, investigated and discovered that a coyote was the true culprit. Despite this, doubts about Skylar's presence persisted. Over time, Skylar began to demonstrate impressive abilities. During a forest walk, Ethan slipped down an embankment and became trapped in a small ravine. Skylar, sensing the danger, ran back home and drew his parents' attention, who followed the wolf to the location and rescued Ethan. This act of loyalty and intelligence changed some neighbors' perception, who began to see Skylar as a special animal, though the community remained divided. The connection between Ethan and Skylar only grew deeper with each passing day. Their story was just beginning, and neither the boy nor the wolf could imagine the challenges and revelations that lay ahead. The small town in Oregon was about to witness an extraordinary tale of friendship that would challenge everything they thought they knew about the relationship between humans and wild animals. As weeks turned into months, the bond between Ethan and Skylar grew ever deeper. The wolf accompanied the boy on his adventures and, on many occasions, seemed to predict dangers before they occurred. Their connection had evolved into something remarkable, transcending the typical relationship between a human and a wild animal. On a cold winter night, during a heavy snowstorm, Skylar demonstrated his exceptional abilities once again. Using his keen sense of smell, the wolf managed to locate a forgotten bag of food in the family's shed, preventing them from going hungry during the harsh weather. This gesture not only cemented Skylar's place in the family, but also transformed him into a figure of respect among many townspeople. The transformation in Skylar's behavior was remarkable. From the scared, skittish pup that had first arrived at their home, he had grown into a confident and protective companion. He would often patrol the perimeter of their property, keeping watch over his adopted family with unwavering dedication. The wolf's intelligence and adaptability continued to amaze everyone who witnessed their unique bond. However, new challenges emerged on the horizon. Researchers from a local university learned about Skylar's story and visited the town to study his behavior. They raised ethical questions about keeping a wolf in a domestic environment and suggested that Skylar should be transferred to a sanctuary. The news devastated Ethan, who couldn't bear the thought of losing his friend. The young boy began mobilizing the neighbors to support Skylar's continued presence in their home. Surprisingly, many of them, including some who had initially opposed the idea, united in defense of the wolf. They had witnessed firsthand the extraordinary relationship between the boy and his wild friend, and many now believed that Skylar belonged exactly where he was. The debate about Skylar's future intensified as the researchers presented their findings. They argued that while the bond between Ethan and Skylar was remarkable, they needed to consider what was best for the wolf in the long term. The community found itself at a crossroads, torn between scientific reasoning and the undeniable evidence of a successful human-wolf companionship. Local media began to take interest in their story, and soon reporters were showing up at their door, eager to document what they called the Oregon Wolf Boy. Ethan, despite his young age, handled the attention with remarkable maturity, always emphasizing that Skylar was not just a pet, but a sentient being who had chosen to be part of their family. Through all the commotion, Skylar remained steadfastly loyal to Ethan. The wolf's behavior continued to defy expectations, showing levels of understanding and emotional intelligence that amazed even the skeptical researchers. He seemed to understand when Ethan was upset about the situation and would stay close to him, offering silent comfort and unwavering support. The situation reached a critical point when the research team proposed a compromise. They would conduct a long-term study of Skylar while allowing him to remain with Ethan's family, provided certain conditions were met. This proposal sparked intense discussions within the community, as everyone had an opinion about what was best for both the boy and his extraordinary companion. One day, while walking through the forest, Ethan and Skylar discovered tracks that the researchers identified as belonging to Skylar's original pack. This discovery reignited the debate about what was best for the wolf, staying with Ethan or returning to his natural habitat. The young boy found himself torn between his love for Skylar and his desire to do what was right for his companion. The tracks in the forest seemed to awaken something deep within Skylar. The wolf began displaying behaviors that indicated an instinctive call to reconnect with his species. He would stand at the forest's edge during dawn and dusk, his ears perked up, listening intently to distant howls that only he could hear. These moments filled Ethan with a mixture of wonder and anxiety as he watched his friend respond to nature's ancient call. The researchers observed these changes in Skylar's behavior with great interest. They noted how the wolf would alternate between his domestic routines with Ethan's family and these new, more wild behaviors. It was as if Skylar existed between two worlds, belonging to both, but not fully to either. The complexity of the situation became increasingly apparent to everyone involved. The community watched with bated breath as the story unfolded. Local wildlife experts were called in to provide their perspectives, and town hall meetings were held to discuss the unique situation. Some argued that it was cruel to keep Skylar from his natural habitat, while others pointed out that the wolf had never learned the skills necessary for survival in the wild. During this time, Ethan showed remarkable maturity for his age. He spent hours researching wolf behavior, trying to understand what Skylar might be experiencing. His dedication to understanding his friend's needs touched many hearts in the community, even among those who had previously been skeptical of their relationship. The situation reached a critical point when a severe storm hit the town, causing landslides and floods. In the midst of the chaos, Skylar once again proved his worth. Before anyone else noticed the danger, he sensed an impending landslide that threatened Ethan's house. Thanks to Skylar's warning, the family evacuated in time, and no irreversible damage was caused. After the storm, the neighbors recognized Skylar's importance and began to see him as an essential member of the community. Through all these events, Skylar's behavior continued to evolve. While his loyalty to Ethan remained unwavering, his connection to his wild nature grew stronger. He would spend long moments watching the forest, especially after rain when the sense of the wilderness was strongest. These moments of contemplation seemed to reflect the complex nature of his existence, a creature of the wild who had found a home among humans. The researchers continued their observations, documenting every aspect of Skylar's unique adaptation to life with humans while maintaining his wolf instincts. Their study was breaking new ground in understanding the relationship between wild animals and humans, though they acknowledged that Skylar's case was exceptional rather than a model to be replicated. As the community debated and the researchers studied, Ethan and Skylar's bond remained strong, adapting to each new challenge. Their story was becoming a testament to the complex relationship between humans and nature, raising questions about adaptation, belonging, and the true meaning of family. The young boy and his wolf friend were teaching their small Oregon town valuable lessons about love, acceptance, and the delicate balance between wildness and domestication. The tension between Skylar's wild nature and his domestic life continued to grow more complex. During their daily walks in the forest, he would occasionally pause, nose lifted to the wind, catching scents that only he could detect. These moments made Ethan's heart race with a mixture of pride and concern, watching his friend navigate between two worlds. The relationship between the boy and the wolf had become a subject of intense study for the university researchers. They were particularly fascinated by how Skylar had developed an almost supernatural ability to sense danger before it occurred. This wasn't just animal instinct. It was something more profound, a combination of his wild intuition and his deep connection with Ethan and his family. During the aftermath of the storm that had threatened their home, the community's perception of Skylar underwent a significant transformation. The same neighbors who had once demanded his removal now spoke of him with respect and admiration. Stories of his warning about the landslide spread throughout the town, and soon Skylar became known as the guardian wolf of Pine Grove. The wolf's abilities continued to amaze everyone. He could detect changes in weather patterns hours before they occurred, leading many in the community to rely on his behavior as an early warning system. When he grew restless and paced near the windows, the townspeople knew to prepare for incoming storms. His natural instincts, rather than being diminished by domestication, had been enhanced by his unique position between the wild and civilized worlds. Back at the conservation center where Ethan had first met Skylar, Dr. Eleanor, the lead veterinarian, began documenting similar cases of wolves displaying extraordinary bonds with humans. Though none quite matched the depth of connection between Ethan and Skylar, these studies were beginning to challenge traditional understanding of wolf behavior and their capacity for forming relationships outside their pack. The researchers from the university expanded their study to include interviews with community members who had witnessed Skylar's remarkable acts of intuition and protection. They were particularly interested in how he had maintained his wild instincts while developing such strong protective behaviors toward his human family. Their findings were beginning to suggest that the traditional view of an unbridgeable gap between wild and domestic animals might need revision. As winter gave way to spring, new challenges emerged. The forest was awakening with renewed life, and the calls of the wild grew stronger. Skylar's behavior during their forest walks became more alert, more focused on distant sounds and scents, yet his loyalty to Ethan never wavered. He would always return to the boy's side, as if reassuring him that their bond remained unbroken. The local media continued to follow their story, but now with a different angle. Instead of focusing on the controversy of keeping a wolf in a domestic setting, they began exploring the broader implications of Skylar's success story. How could this unique relationship inform wildlife conservation efforts? What lessons could be learned about the coexistence of humans and wild animals? Through all of this, Ethan remained the constant in Skylar's life, the anchor that kept him connected to the human world while allowing him to honor his wild nature. Their daily routines had evolved into a beautiful dance between two different worlds, each enriching the other. The young boy had grown wise beyond his years, understanding that true love sometimes meant accepting the complexity of having a foot in two different worlds. As spring bloomed in the Oregon wilderness, the town's attitude toward Skylar had evolved into something unexpected. The same community that had once been divided over his presence now rallied together when the university researchers suggested moving him to a sanctuary. The transformation was particularly evident during town hall meetings, where longtime residents shared stories of how the wolf had become an integral part of their community. Mrs. Thompson, the elderly owner of the local grocery store, stood up at one such meeting to recount how Skylar had alerted her to a gas leak in her store before anyone else could detect it. Mr. Rodriguez, the school janitor, described how the wolf would wait patiently outside the school fence when Ethan was in class, becoming an unofficial mascot for the children who would wave to him through the windows. The researchers were fascinated by these accounts, particularly by how Skylar had managed to integrate himself into the community's daily life while maintaining his wild instincts. They noted how he would alternate between his protective duties around the town and his more wolf-like behaviors in the forest, creating a unique balance that challenged their previous assumptions about wolf rehabilitation. During this time, Skylar's abilities continued to develop in remarkable ways. He seemed to have an almost supernatural sense for detecting not just physical dangers, but emotional distress as well. When Sarah, Ethan's mother, received concerning news about a family member, Skylar stayed by her side all day, offering silent comfort before anyone else knew something was wrong. The local conservation center began receiving inquiries from other facilities about their wolf integration program, though Dr. Elena was quick to explain that Skylar's case was unique. She emphasized that it wasn't just about the wolf's exceptional nature, but about the special bond he shared with Ethan and the community's willingness to adapt and learn. As the debate about Skylar's future continued, the wolf himself seemed untroubled by the controversy surrounding him. His days followed a routine that bridged his two worlds perfectly. Mornings were spent patrolling the neighborhood, afternoons waiting for Ethan outside the school, and evenings exploring the forest with his young friend. During these forest excursions, he would often pause to listen to distant howls, but he always returned to Ethan's side as if making a conscious choice each time. The university researchers were particularly intrigued by this behavior. They had never seen a wolf so successfully maintain connections to both the wild and human worlds. Their studies began to suggest that Skylar hadn't just adapted to human life. He had created an entirely new way of being, one that honored both his wild nature and his chosen family. The media attention had died down somewhat, but occasionally reporters would still visit the town, drawn by news stories of Skylar's extraordinary abilities. One journalist spent a week observing the wolf and wrote a touching piece about how he would gather the neighborhood children's lost balls and toys, returning them to the correct houses without fail. Through all of this, Ethan remained Skylar's primary focus. Their bond had grown even stronger, evolving into something that went beyond words or conventional understanding. They seemed to communicate in a language of their own, made up of subtle gestures, looks, and an almost telepathic awareness of each other's needs. The harsh winter nights in Oregon brought new challenges and opportunities for Skylar to demonstrate his extraordinary capabilities. During one particularly severe snowstorm, when the town's supplies were running low, Skylar's keen sense of smell proved invaluable. The wolf managed to locate a forgotten cache of food supplies in the family's storage shed, hidden beneath layers of snow and frost. This discovery not only helped Ethan's family, but also allowed them to share with neighbors who were struggling through the severe weather. The incident with the food supplies quickly became another testament to Skylar's unique blend of wild instinct and domestic care. The neighbors who had once been skeptical now spoke of him with admiration, recognizing that his wolf senses, combined with his devotion to the community, made him an invaluable member of their town. Mrs. Baker, who had initially been one of his strongest critics, was among the first to acknowledge how Skylar's presence had made their community stronger. As the winter deepened, Skylar's behavior began to show fascinating adaptations to the harsh conditions. He would create paths through the deep snow for the younger children to follow safely to school, and his acute weather sense helped the town prepare for incoming storms. The researchers documented how he would become increasingly alert hours before a blizzard, giving the community precious time to secure their homes and livestock. The local veterinarians were particularly intrigued by how Skylar maintained his wild resilience while adapting to domestic life. Unlike domestic dogs who might struggle in severe weather, Skylar thrived, using his natural wolf instincts to navigate the winter landscape. Yet he never failed to return home each evening, choosing the warmth of Ethan's family over the call of the wild forest. During this time, Ethan's bond with Skylar grew even deeper. The boy spent hours observing how his friend adapted to the winter conditions, learning from him about survival and resilience. Their communication seemed to transcend ordinary understanding, with Skylar responding to the slightest change in Ethan's mood or needs. When Ethan caught a winter cold, Skylar refused to leave his bedside, maintaining a protective vigil until the boy recovered. The university researchers continued their observations, particularly interested in how Skylar's protective instincts extended beyond his immediate family to encompass the entire community. They noted how he would check on elderly residents during particularly cold nights, scratching at their doors until he was assured of their safety. These behaviors challenged everything they thought they knew about wolf psychology and social bonding. The winter also brought new questions about Skylar's future. The tracks of his original pack, discovered earlier in the forest, had become obscured by snow, but the question of his true place in the world remained. Some argued that the harsh winter proved he belonged with his human family, while others suggested that his exceptional survival skills indicated he could still return to the wild if he chose. Through the long winter nights, Skylar's presence became a source of comfort and security for the entire community. His ability to find food in the storage shed wasn't just luck. It was a perfect fusion of his wild instincts and his understanding of human needs. He would often lead Ethan to spots where winter berries still grew, sharing his knowledge of the forest's hidden resources with his young friend. The intensity of the storm that hit the small Oregon town tested every member of the community, but it was during this crisis that Skylar's extraordinary abilities shone brightest. The wolf's behavior became increasingly agitated hours before the severe weather system arrived, pacing anxiously near windows and doors, his instincts alerting him to the approaching danger that weather forecasts had failed to predict accurately. As the storm gathered force, Skylar's restlessness increased. He kept moving between Ethan's family members, nudging them urgently, his behavior clearly indicating distress. His eyes constantly moved toward the hillside behind their house, and his whines became more insistent. Ethan, who had learned to trust Skylar's instincts implicitly, knew something was terribly wrong. The wolf's anxiety reached its peak when he began pulling at Ethan's sleeve, trying to guide the family away from the house. His behavior was so unusual and intense that even Ethan's parents, who had learned to respect Skylar's instincts, became alarmed. The rain had been falling steadily for hours, and the ground was saturated with water. It was then that Skylar's warning proved prophetic. The hillside behind their house, weakened by days of continuous rain, began to show signs of instability. Thanks to Skylar's early warning, the family had enough time to alert the authorities and evacuate not only themselves, but also their immediate neighbors. Minutes later, the landslide occurred, threatening their home and the surrounding area. The evacuation scene became a powerful testament to the trust the community had developed in Skylar. Neighbors who had once questioned the wisdom of keeping a wolf in their midst now followed his lead without hesitation. The wolf seemed to understand the gravity of the situation, helping guide people to safer ground, his wild instincts working in perfect harmony with his protective nature. Throughout the crisis, Skylar remained tireless in his efforts to help. He would dart between groups of evacuees, checking on the elderly and children, seeming to understand who needed the most assistance. His behavior during the emergency caught the attention of local emergency response teams, who were amazed by his systematic approach to ensuring everyone's safety. The researchers from the university, who happened to be in town during the storm, witnessed firsthand how Skylar's wolf instincts had evolved into something extraordinary. They observed how he combined his natural ability to sense environmental changes with an almost human-like understanding of complex situations. His actions during the crisis became a crucial part of their study on wolf intelligence and adaptability. As the community gathered in the local school gymnasium, which had been converted into an emergency shelter, Skylar's presence brought comfort to many. Children who were frightened by the storm found solace in his calm demeanor, and adults marveled at how he would move from family to family, offering silent support and reassurance. In the aftermath of the storm, the community's gratitude towards Skylar reached new heights. His early warning about the landslide had prevented what could have been a devastating situation. As families returned to assess the damage to their properties, stories of Skylar's actions during the crisis spread throughout the town, reaching even the most distant farms and homesteads. The local newspaper dedicated its front page to the story, with the headline "Wolf Guardian Saves Town." Interviews with residents revealed a pattern of Skylar's protective behavior that had gone beyond just warning about the landslide. Several families reported how he had guided them through the darkness when the power failed, his keen eyesight and sense of direction proving invaluable in the chaos of evacuation. The university researchers, who had witnessed the events firsthand, were compelled to revise their earlier assessments. What they had observed wasn't just remarkable adaptation or learned behavior, it was something unprecedented in their studies of wolf-human interactions. Skylar had demonstrated not only extraordinary intelligence, but also a deep understanding of human needs and emotions during a crisis. Town meetings in the following days took on a different tone. The same venues where people had once debated the risks of having a wolf in their community now echoed with proposals to officially recognize Skylar's contribution to the town's safety. The mayor, initially one of the skeptics, suggested creating a special role for Skylar in the town's emergency response planning. For Ethan, watching his community finally embrace Skylar completely was a moment of profound joy and vindication. The bond he had felt with the wolf from their first meeting at the conservation center had blossomed into something that even he hadn't fully imagined. Their connection had grown beyond a simple friendship between a boy and his unusual pet. It had become a bridge between the wild and human worlds. The conservation center, where Ethan and Skylar's story began, also experienced changes. Dr. Elena, who had first introduced them, started developing new protocols for wildlife rehabilitation based on their case. While she emphasized that Skylar's situation was unique, and not every wild animal could or should be integrated into human communities, his success story offered valuable insights into the potential for coexistence. During this period, Skylar's behavior continued to evolve. While maintaining his role as the town's guardian, he showed an increasing interest in teaching Ethan about the natural world. On their walks through the recovering forest, he would lead the boy to areas where new growth was emerging from the storm-damaged earth, demonstrating nature's resilience. These moments of sharing became precious lessons in both survival and hope. The researchers noted how Skylar balanced his domestic responsibilities with his wild instincts. Even as he patrolled the neighborhood and checked on community members, he maintained his acute awareness of the forest and its inhabitants. His unique position as a bridge between these two worlds provided invaluable data for their studies on wolf behavior and intelligence. One misty morning, during their regular walk in the forest, Ethan and Skylar made a discovery that would once again challenge their extraordinary relationship. Fresh wolf tracks, clearly belonging to Skylar's original pack, marked the damp earth. The researchers who had been studying Skylar confirmed the connection, setting in motion a series of events that would test the bonds of their friendship. The discovery stirred something deep within Skylar. His behavior began to show subtle changes that only Ethan, with his profound understanding of his friend, could fully appreciate. The wolf would spend longer moments at the forest's edge, his ears perked toward distant sounds that human ears couldn't detect. His wild heritage was calling to him in ways that couldn't be ignored. The university team observed these changes with intense interest. They noticed how Skylar would alternate between his domestic routines and these new, more primal behaviors. During the day, he remained the faithful companion and community guardian, but at dawn and dusk, he would stand alert, listening to the distant calls of his kind. His responses to these calls created a visible internal struggle that touched everyone who witnessed it. Ethan, showing wisdom beyond his years, began to wrestle with complex emotions. He loved Skylar deeply and couldn't imagine life without him, but he also understood that his friend was experiencing a powerful pull toward his natural heritage. The boy spent hours in the local library researching wolf behavior and trying to understand what Skylar might be feeling. The community watched this unfolding drama with bated breath. The same people who had come to rely on Skylar's presence now faced the possibility that he might choose to return to his wild family. The town's children, who had grown used to seeing the wolf waiting patiently outside their school, sensed the change in him and asked Ethan worried questions about whether Skylar would stay. Dr. Eleanor from the Conservation Center provided valuable insights during this period. She explained how wolves are naturally drawn to their pack and how remarkable it was that Skylar had maintained his domestic bonds for so long. Her observations helped the community understand that they were witnessing something unprecedented, a wolf successfully balancing his wild nature with his chosen human family. The researchers expanded their study to include this new development. They documented how Skylar would investigate the pack's tracks, but always return to Ethan's side, how he would howl in response to distant wolf calls, but remain firmly rooted in his domestic life. His behavior challenged their understanding of wolf psychology and raised new questions about the capacity of wild animals to form lasting bonds with humans. The discovery of his original pack's presence in the area brought new complexity to Skylar's daily life. His routine, once split between family life and community service, now included long moments of contemplation at the forest's edge. These quiet vigils spoke of an inner struggle that touched everyone who witnessed them, especially Ethan, who watched his friend navigate between two powerful pulls, the call of the wild and the bonds of love. During this time, Skylar's protective instincts remained as sharp as ever. Even as he processed the presence of his birth pack, he never neglected his duties to the community. If anything, his awareness seemed heightened, as if the awakening of his wild nature had strengthened rather than diminished his commitment to his human family. He continued his daily patrols, checked on elderly residents, and maintained his watchful presence outside the school. The researchers found themselves documenting an unprecedented phenomenon. Most wild animals, when presented with the opportunity to return to their natural habitat, would show clear signs of wanting to leave their domestic situation. Skylar, however, appeared to be creating a new paradigm, one where he could honor both his wild heritage and his chosen family. His behavior suggested a level of emotional and social intelligence that challenged existing theories about wolf psychology. Ethan's response to this situation revealed his own growth and maturity. Rather than trying to keep Skylar from exploring his heritage, the boy began accompanying him on longer forest excursions. Together, they would follow the pack's trails, with Ethan learning to read the signs that Skylar had always understood instinctively. These adventures deepened their bond while acknowledging Skylar's dual nature. The community watched this development with a mixture of concern and admiration. They had come to depend on Skylar's presence, not just for the practical benefits of his protective instincts, but for the sense of connection to the natural world that he brought to their lives. Children would gather at safe distances when Skylar and Ethan explored the forest's edge, learning valuable lessons about respect for wildlife and the complexity of natural bonds. Dr. Eleanor and her team from the Conservation Center took particular interest in how Skylar managed this balance. They observed how he would investigate the pack's markings and listen to their calls, yet consistently choose to return to his human family. His behavior suggested that perhaps the traditional understanding of wild versus domestic was too simplistic, that there might be a middle ground where both natures could coexist. The changing seasons brought new challenges as Skylar continued to navigate his unique position between the wild and domestic worlds. The wolf's behavior became increasingly sophisticated, demonstrating a remarkable ability to blend his natural instincts with his role in the human community. On morning walks with Ethan, he would pause to mark certain trails, maintaining a delicate balance between his territorial nature and his adopted home. The university researchers were particularly fascinated by how Skylar seemed to create his own unique territory that encompassed both the town and portions of the forest. He had established what they called a hybrid territory, where he acted as a bridge between the wild and human worlds. His patrols now included both checking on his human neighbors and monitoring the boundaries where his realm intersected with his original pack's territory. During this period, Skylar's intelligence continued to astonish everyone. He developed an uncanny ability to sense not just physical dangers, but emotional distress within the community. When young Tommy Wilson got lost after school, Skylar tracked him down before any search party could be organized, finding the boy who had wandered off the usual path, trying to take a shortcut home. These incidents reinforced the community's trust in their unusual guardian. The presence of his original pack's tracks in the area remained a constant reminder of Skylar's wild heritage, but it also highlighted the remarkable choice he made each day to remain with his human family. The researchers noted how he would acknowledge the pack's markers, but then deliberately place his own, creating what they described as a diplomatic boundary between the two worlds he straddled. Ethan's understanding of his friend deepened during this time. He noticed how Skylar would teach him about the forest in his own way, showing him which plants were safe to touch, which mushrooms to avoid, and how to read the many signs that nature left for those who knew how to look. Their bond had evolved into a partnership where both learned from each other, creating a unique dialogue between human and wolf perspectives. The Conservation Center began documenting these teaching behaviors, recognizing that Skylar's method of sharing knowledge with Ethan could provide valuable insights into wolf intelligence and interspecies communication. Dr. Elena observed that while other wolves might show protective instincts toward their pack members, Skylar's deliberate efforts to educate and guide were unprecedented. The transformation of the town's attitude toward Skylar had become complete. The same community that had once been divided over his presence now united in support when questions about his future arose. Town hall meetings, once forums for heated debates about the safety of harboring a wolf, had evolved into planning sessions for how to better integrate Skylar's unique abilities into community life. The mayor, who had witnessed Skylar's invaluable contribution during the recent natural disasters, proposed creating an official role for him in the town's emergency response system. The idea wasn't just symbolic. Skylar's ability to predict weather changes and sense impending dangers had proven crucial for community safety. The proposal received overwhelming support, marking a historic moment in the town's relationship with its unusual resident. During this period, Skylar's interaction with the children of the town became particularly noteworthy. He seemed to understand that these young humans needed special attention and protection. Parents who had once fearfully called their children inside when Skylar approached now watched with amazement as he gently guided groups of kids home from school, ensuring they stayed on safe paths and away from potential dangers. The research team expanded their study to include these social interactions. They were fascinated by how Skylar had created what they termed an extended pack structure that included not just Ethan's family, but the entire community. His behavior challenged traditional understanding of wolf social bonds and suggested capabilities for adaptation that no one had previously imagined possible. Dr. Eleanor's observations from the Conservation Center provided valuable context for these developments. She noted that while wolves are naturally social animals with strong pack instincts, Skylar's ability to transfer these instincts to a human community while maintaining his wild awareness was unprecedented. His case was beginning to influence how wildlife experts thought about the possibilities for human-wildlife coexistence. The local school even incorporated Skylar's presence into their curriculum, using him as a living example of wildlife conservation and the importance of understanding and respecting nature. Children would eagerly share stories of their interactions with him, and their questions led to deeper discussions about environmental responsibility and the relationship between humans and wildlife. As autumn painted the Oregon forests in brilliant hues of red and gold, the presence of Skylar's original pack became more pronounced. Their tracks appeared more frequently near the town's borders, and their howls echoed through the valleys with increasing regularity. These signs brought both excitement and anxiety to the community, especially to Ethan, who watched his friends' reactions with keen attention. During their daily walks, Skylar would often pause at specific points in the forest, his ears alert and nose testing the wind. These moments held a special significance now, as each stop seemed to mark a boundary between his two worlds. The researchers noted how he would carefully investigate signs of his wild family, but always maintain a respectful distance, as if acknowledging their presence while affirming his choice to remain with his human pack. The university team was particularly intrigued by Skylar's response to these encounters. Instead of showing signs of conflict or distress, he appeared to have developed a diplomatic approach to managing his dual nature. He would respond to the distant howls with his own voice, but the researchers noted that his calls seemed more like greetings than longings to return, suggesting he had found peace with his unique position between worlds. Ethan's relationship with Skylar continued to deepen during this time. The boy had learned to read his friend's subtle signals and body language with remarkable accuracy. When Skylar detected something of interest in the forest, Ethan would follow his lead, trusting in the wolf's judgment, while offering the companionship that had become essential to both of them. Their bond had evolved into a partnership that bridged the gap between human understanding and wild wisdom. The Conservation Center staff, led by Dr. Elena, documented how Skylar's behavior during these encounters differed from typical wolf responses. While most wolves would feel a strong pull to rejoin their birth pack, Skylar displayed what they described as a conscious choice to maintain his unique role in the human community while respecting his wild heritage. His case was providing new insights into wolf intelligence and decision-making capabilities. While the debate about Skylar's future continued among the researchers and wildlife experts, the wolf himself seemed to have found his own answer to the question of belonging. His daily routines had evolved into a perfect balance of his dual nature, demonstrating an understanding of both worlds that amazed even the most experienced wildlife observers. The research team was particularly fascinated by how Skylar had created what they called a hybrid territory. In the mornings, he would patrol the town's perimeter, checking on his human neighbors and ensuring the community's safety. During these rounds, he showed all the dedication of a domestic guardian, yet maintained the keen alertness of his wild nature. His afternoon ventures into the forest displayed equal complexity, as he monitored the boundaries where his territory met that of his original pack. Dr. Elena's observations from the Conservation Center provided valuable insights into this unique behavior. She noted that while most rehabilitated wild animals either fully returned to their natural habitat or became completely domesticated, Skylar had created a third path, one that honored both his wild heritage and his chosen family. His case was becoming a source of new understanding about the potential for coexistence between humans and wildlife. Ethan, who had grown alongside Skylar through all these changes, showed remarkable maturity in his understanding of his friend's complex nature. He never tried to restrict Skylar's explorations of his wild heritage, instead accompanying him on these journeys when possible, learning from the wolf's natural wisdom while offering the companionship that had become essential to both of them. The community had also evolved in their understanding. Those who had once feared having a wolf in their midst now spoke proudly of their unique guardian. They shared stories of how Skylar had helped during various crises, from finding lost children to warning of approaching storms. His presence had transformed their understanding of wildlife and their relationship with the natural world. As winter approached once again, bringing with it the challenges of harsh weather and limited resources, Skylar's role in the community became even more vital. His natural instincts, combined with his understanding of human needs, made him an invaluable guardian during these difficult months. The wolf's ability to locate resources and predict weather changes had become legendary among the townspeople. The research team continued to document Skylar's extraordinary behaviors, particularly noting how he balanced his protective duties with his connection to the wild. During severe weather, he would alternate between checking on vulnerable community members and using his keen senses to monitor environmental changes. His actions demonstrated a level of cognitive complexity that challenged existing theories about wolf intelligence. Ethan's bond with Skylar had matured into something that transcended ordinary understanding. The boy had learned to read the subtle changes in his friend's behavior that signaled approaching weather changes or potential dangers. Together, they had developed a system of communication that bridged the gap between human and wolf perception, creating a partnership that benefited the entire community. The Conservation Center's staff, particularly Dr. Elena, found themselves revising their approaches to wildlife rehabilitation based on Skylar's case. While they maintained that his situation was unique and not a model for general wildlife management, his success in creating a balanced life between wild and domestic worlds offered valuable insights into animal intelligence and adaptability. The community's transformation was perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Skylar's story. Those who had once demanded his removal now spoke of him as an essential member of their town. His presence had changed not only their perception of wildlife, but also their understanding of community itself. They had learned that family could extend beyond traditional boundaries, and that wisdom could come from unexpected sources. The impact of Skylar's presence in the small Oregon town had extended far beyond what anyone could have imagined when Ethan first brought home the rejected wolf pup. His story had become a testament to the possibility of bridging worlds that many had thought forever separate. The university researchers found themselves documenting not just a case of successful animal rehabilitation, but a revolutionary example of interspecies cooperation and understanding. During town meetings, which had once been forums for heated debates about the dangers of harboring a wild animal, residents now shared stories of how Skylar had enriched their lives. The elderly spoke of his gentle vigilance, parents recounted his protective watch over their children, and local authorities acknowledged how his natural instincts had helped prevent several potential disasters. The Conservation Center had begun incorporating lessons learned from Skylar's case into their wildlife management programs. Dr. Elena emphasized that while not every wild animal could or should be integrated into human communities, Skylar's experience offered valuable insights into animal intelligence and adaptability. His success had prompted a re-evaluation of traditional approaches to wildlife rehabilitation. Ethan's growth throughout this journey had been remarkable. The boy who had once begged to take home a lonely wolf pup had matured into a thoughtful young person with a deep understanding of both natural and human worlds. His relationship with Skylar had taught him invaluable lessons about responsibility, patience, and the importance of understanding and respecting nature's wisdom. The researchers had compiled extensive documentation of Skylar's unique abilities and behaviors. They noted how he seamlessly combined his wild instincts with learned social behaviors, creating what they termed a hybrid intelligence that allowed him to function effectively in both natural and human environments. His ability to predict dangers, from severe weather to unstable ground, had saved lives and property multiple times. Although Skylar's future had once been a subject of heated debate, his presence in the community had become an undeniable force for positive change. His story had transformed from a controversial experiment into a powerful example of how humans and wildlife could coexist in harmony. The wolf who had once been rejected by his own pack had created something entirely new, a bridge between the wild and human worlds. The transformation in the community's perception was complete. Those who had initially opposed Skylar's presence now spoke of him with respect and admiration. His actions during various crises, especially his warning about the landslide that could have brought tragedy to their town, had proven his worth beyond any doubt. He had become more than just Ethan's companion. He was an essential member of their community. The research team's final report highlighted how Skylar had maintained his wild instincts while developing an extraordinary capacity for human interaction. His ability to sense dangers, predict weather changes, and protect the community had demonstrated intelligence and adaptability that challenged conventional understanding of wolf behavior. While they emphasized that his case was unique, the insights gained from studying him had opened new perspectives on wildlife conservation and rehabilitation. For Ethan, the journey with Skylar had been transformative. Their bond had grown from a boy's love for a lonely wolf pup into a profound partnership that bridged two worlds. Together they had shown that love and understanding could transcend the boundaries between species, creating connections that enriched both human and animal lives. As the seasons continued to change in their small Oregon town, Skylar remained a constant presence, embodying the best of both his wild heritage and his chosen family. His story had become a testament to the power of acceptance, adaptation, and the extraordinary bonds that could form when hearts remained open to unexpected possibilities. Dear listeners, we hope that Ethan and Skylar's extraordinary journey has touched your hearts as deeply as it has transformed their small Oregon community. Their story reminds us that the most powerful connections often come from unexpected places, and that love knows no boundaries, whether they be between species or worlds. To continue experiencing more touching stories like this one, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We have a special playlist of inspiring tales about remarkable bonds between humans and animals waiting for you. Find it by clicking to your left. Share your thoughts and similar experiences in the comments below, as your stories help build our community of animal lovers and storytellers. Join us tomorrow for another moving tale that celebrates the incredible connections that make our world a more beautiful place.